Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video. This video is about Dawn, the 13.5 bush pony we had while we were in New Zealand. Dawn we bought, she was advertised as a first pony. She really was not. And I knew she had some issues. Look, she quite loved being on the lead rein. I knew she had some issues, but I thought, as I was previously an instructor and a coach and everything else, that we would be able to work through these things. And she was quite a sweet little pony. Come to riding her, the girls found that, to start with, they couldn't get her to move. As you see here, it's a bit of a struggle. When she finally did go, she almost cantered off there. She wanted to run off. The girls never cantered on purpose on her, but they did a lot of cantering. So she didn't want to go forward, and as soon as the girls finally managed to get her going forward, she would lose her steering and then just go all over the place. And if they managed to get her going forward and steering, then she would just canter off with them. You want to go forward? I'll go forward. See how you like it. That kind of attitude. So here, it's a bit of a problem getting her to move, though she's not being too awful. All of the kids did get cantered off with on her. All of them did have steering issues with her, and a couple of them fell off her. Just watching how this is going. I think we had a canter here. Maybe only about 4 strides, but I think she eventually goes. The one thing that did happen, the girls were all quite beginnery when we first got her. What did happen as a result of riding her was their positions over time became a lot more stable. What's going on here? Do we get a trot here? I'm not sure. Oh, a little jog anyway. I mean, at the moment she's behaving quite a lot like a normal riding school pony in these videos. And obviously I videoed the best of her, because when she was at her worst, I was not videoing, I was concentrating on helping the kids. Yeah, this was her, I'm not going to move. And if my daughter there had got her moving, then she would have been like, fine, we'll go. Meow. So, again, lack of steering. She was supposed to be over by the fence posts over there. Typical. Anyway, we shall just carry on watching for a bit. Sorry if I'm a little bit sniffly. I've got a bit of a runny nose. This is when my oldest daughter had finally, actually she was the only one who did ask for canter and did get it, and in the end was able to steer. But already her position has become a lot more stable. Her leg has become a lot stronger and a lot stiller. And so she's actually going quite well. Yep, she's managing to keep to the outside of the paddock quite nicely. I think I was quite impressed. I think I'd asked her to canter, wrong lead, but we were just happy to get a canter. And then this was fairly under control. It was quite good, actually. I think that was the best any of my children managed to ride her. Oh, this is Amy on her. Also, gaining control of the trot and the steering all at the same time. And it took so much work to get to this point, because Dawn was so difficult. That was actually thinking, oh, this is quite hopeful. Maybe, maybe things will come right. And actually for the complete beginners, Dawn was pretty good. She was good on the lead rein, and she was quite good for my youngest daughter. She just plod around and yeah, she went quite well. But then when it got to the point of my daughter my middle daughter. I have three. The middle daughter wanting to start cantering on purpose, then it became difficult again. I think a little bit in a couple of clips' time, we have, here it is. Okay, so we had the two ponies in together. By this time, we'd got another pony from my oldest daughter. He was great. A few little quirks that ironed out quite well, actually. So we put them in together. Now, Dawn had been on a riding school before we got her. And she had been sold because she had so many tricks up her sleeve. Anyway, on this day, we decided to try and get the ponies working independently of each other. Obviously, in a riding school, they tend to form a ride with one pony behind the other, and then when you take in turns and you go from the front of the ride to the back of the ride, having a trot or a canter or something, and so Dawn was wanting all the time to get behind Gucci, and so having them both in there at the same time kind of put things back to square one again. Dawn was okay-ish for a little while, but eventually all her old tricks started resurfacing because she was like, I don't do riding school things. I don't go in a ride. I don't go away from the other pony when I'm in with another pony. I can't trot around with half a paddock between us. I must be behind him. Anyway, so we'll wait and see exactly what happens here. What we also discovered was once the girls were all competent in walk and trot with the steering and the forward movement and the straightness and everything else, we had to then go, or we would then go through it all over again when starting to canter. So you'll notice here later when Dawn canters off with Amy, the steering completely goes again. When I first took over riding Dawn, she pulled out every trick she had, because I think that she'd got away with it for so long, like, no, I'm not going forward. Oh, I'm going forward. Fine, I'll run off with you. I won't steer. I won't do that. And she'd got away with it for so long and, been sold on and sold on because of it, that when I got on her and I wasn't going to put up with it, she pulled out every trick she had. She threw all her toys out of the cot. She had tantrums, big tantrums. She spun around. She was spinning around with me for about 15 minutes, refusing to go forward. She would do little half rears, possibly because I'm too big for her, and therefore she probably couldn't get any further off the ground. And then, here we go. Yeah, the steering went. She was just running around to get behind Gucci. I'll come back to what I was saying later, but we'll just watch this for a little while. See, Amy, as of yet, had never cantered on purpose. The only time she learned to canter by being cantered off with. She learned to sit on the canter by being cantered off with. When I first started cantering Dawn, on the right rein, she would throw her head in the air and then jump sideways towards the fence or a wall or whatever, wherever we were, she'd be trying to jump into the fence. And then she would stop dead with her head stuck in the air, and she's so little and there's nothing in front of you that you'd end up with her ears up your nose pretty much. Here we go again. And she just was difficult. Here we go. Crashed into me. This is such naughty riding school pony behaviour. This is like any riding school, the worst pony that no one wants to ride because she keeps doing that. And Amy had worked so hard to get her right in the walk and the trot. And I think at this point, Amy did get to grips with her during the lesson for 5 or 10 minutes after this. See, none of this has been asked for at all. It was very disheartening for Amy. Let's see, just wants to get behind the other pony. Just wants to get behind the other pony. And look, I knew when we bought her that she wasn't quite what was advertised, but I thought that it wouldn't be too difficult to iron out. My mistake. Anyway, Amy actually did a really good job sticking with it, and well done, Amy. That was nice. You pulled her up. And took her away from Gucci again. I think we might be off after we ran this turn though. Are we? Or does she stop her? Oh, well done. That was good. What we actually need then is for her to not grind to a halt. The other thing that happened was when Amy started getting better at sticking with her in the canter, then she would go canter to halt in like that. And Amy pinged off a couple of times with that. And after that, she just said, I want to carry on riding, but I don't want to carry on riding Dawn. Poor Amy. And all the while here, I was coaching her through it. You can't hear me talking, obviously, because I'm doing voiceover, but I was coaching her through it. And you notice actually how much more stable Amy's legs are, and her whole body position is through riding this naughty pony. Unfortunately, Amy did not have the experience to keep it consistent. There, she's doing well. She's getting to grips with her. She's keeping the trot moving there rather than stopping the canter and ending up doing absolutely nothing. From here, it started going quite a lot better, actually. Dawn became more consistent. I know she's not trotting with any impulsion or anything, but she's trotting independently of Gucci. Maybe they even make it over the poles, actually. Let's see. Come on, pan back to Dawn. This is about her. And we got over the poles, which was really good. And I remember... Okay, do we go around again, maybe? Because I do remember her trotting quite well. Oh, we had one circling in front of her. Yeah, that's right. And then she circles away. And even though it's only jogging, the steering is there. She turns away willingly from the other pony. So I was quite impressed with the fact that things were seeming to improve and that Amy seemed to have conquered the issues that they were having. And that Dawn had finally sort of thought it was far too much effort to mess around and it would probably be easier just to do what she was told. So at this point I was thinking, this is great. Things are going quite well. And then that happened again. And then after that, I think Amy just mentally quit. Because she'd been working so hard for ages. And it started going well, and then it didn't. And by this point, or at this point, currently, I have had enough of watching this. Oh, poor Amy. And yeah, I think at that point we decided I'm going to take over the ride. We're going to give Amy a break, and I will pretend Dawn is my pony, and we will look for an actual first pony who is as advertised rather than this nonsense. By this time we'd had enough. And look, I kind of felt sorry for Dawn. She was obviously an unhappy pony who'd got away with things a lot too often in her life, and she just needed a change. So that's what we endeavoured to give her. And you'll see how it went from there. I will say as a disclaimer, I do show you one fall in this video with me falling off Dawn. I fell off her 3 times in the time we had her, each when jumping, because when she stopped at a jump, she'd drop her shoulder and spin sideways, and I'd just bail out the side. If she'd been 16 hands, would it have happened like that? Maybe not. A 16-hander would be cantering slower, and there would be more to hold on to. As I said before, Dawn was 13 1.5, and I'm far too big for her, and it was hard enough to stay on just in her canter because she is so little and short. Okay, so on to me having her as my pony. Here she does have a Kimblewick as her bit. We had put that in for the girls to ride up on our hill just so they could stay and walk, and I just hadn't bothered to change it. Not for any other reason. I just hadn't bothered to change it yet. The main thing here was to get her going forward without reservation, to get her steering properly, to get her to go when I asked, to get her to stop when I asked without making a fuss about it. I wasn't too bothered about her outline. I just wanted a nice still hand that she could work into and find the frame for herself, which she did quite well. Here she thought, canter? Do we canter now? I said, no, not yet, not yet. And as I went here, you can see on the right rein, this is not bad. She just stuck her head up a little bit, whereas before she used to stick her head up and throw herself sideways. So here she's already starting to settle, and this is just after a week. So that little head up there was just a little bit of a hangover from what she'd been doing before. But I was quite pleased with how she went. She actually really tried. Oh, I think I'll pop over a couple of little jumps here. Oop. Good girl, Dawn. And on this rein. My leg looks so loose there. Oh, struggling to stay on balance with her because she's so little. Oh. Well, she's trying, which is great. And here, I think this one was quite good actually, because she was a lot straighter going into it, and she was taking me in nicely without running too much. That was a lot better actually. Maybe the distance was a little bit short. Oh, we found Dawn's strength.
Hello, Missy.
Was riding out over our hill and not caring about all the other livestock. I mean, look at this, watch.
Hello.
The goat climbs up on her.
Dawn, you're a
She
good
doesn't
girl.
even care. I was so impressed. This is my daughter back on Dawn. After me riding her for about 2 weeks, we put Caitlin on her. Caitlin's the one who has the golden boy. Basically, we just wanted to see if there'd been any improvement for one of the girls to ride her. And I think a little quirks tried to come out there. She didn't want to steer properly. She didn't want to stay out. She wanted to fall in. But generally speaking, there was an improvement from before when the girls rode her. So I was quite pleased. That was a better turn that time. I actually rounded up the cows on Dawn once, and because they were on the wrong side of the dam, so I rounded them up on her, and she kind of pushed them back through the dam and onto the other side. Dam being slightly larger than a pond, but for the animals to drink out of, not like a reservoir type dam. Well, it is a reservoir of rainwater, but not like the big ones like the Hoover Dam or anything like that, just a little pond out there. Anyway, the steering was going quite well, the trot was going quite well. I actually wanted Caitlin to kick her on a bit just to get even steps in between the trot poles, and that was better. I think they skipped the last one. Yeah, they skipped the last one. So then we had to work on Caitlin aiming to the left of the last pole so that they would hopefully end up going over the middle of it by the time they got there. But this was a lot better than Dawn used to be, and this was only after like a couple of weeks, as I said. So definitely she was getting more willing to be steered around and asked to move and whatever, so that was quite good. Whoops. Yep, they made it over the middle of that pole anyway, so that was good. We even had a canter, and while it wasn't perfect, and so she didn't want to steer there, and then she wanted to stop and all of that, Caitlin just sat back, tried again, And again, steering's a bit dodgy, circle's getting a bit small, but she's not being cantered off with. And we're going to try again. I think we get round the turn this time. Again, canter's a bit small. However, she went past me without stopping. And look, like I said, it's not perfect, but there was no dirty tricks as such. Caitlin just needed to be a little bit stronger in the canter in order to get her on a bigger circle. But again, my girls were at the time complete novices. And so to even have that much improvement, I was really quite pleased with. I wonder how much more we have of. One thing we did do with Dawn, or I did do with Dawn, is Amy on the little unicorn that we actually found in the end. He was brilliant, and more about him in another video. So I used to hack Dawn out, well, not hack her out, ride her over our hill at least 3 times a week. It was really steep, and I did it mainly for her fitness, but also to clear the cobwebs out of her head. She liked nothing more than to be out there on the hill with the wind blowing through her mane and her ears pricked, and she just, oh, they're not pricked right there, there we go, happy girl. She loved it. She was quite an independent girl. She didn't care whether there was other horses with her or not. In fact, she tolerated other ponies and horses being with her, but she didn't care. She was just as happy on her own. Oh, what a good boy he was. Anyway, so I did this mainly to work on her fitness because the hill was really steep, and we just took time. We'd walk up it a couple of times, and we'd trot up it, and then we'd canter up it on each rein, because the field on the hill was a big square, so I'd canter up one side and then change the rein coming down, and then canter up the other side, and just work on her fitness like that. Both the ponies were puffing a little bit by the time we got to the top, but she absolutely loved that. I also took her to some dressage days. She was 3rd and 4th in her first one in a small class, I have to say. Haha, she even did walk to canter by then. At this point, we were just working on jumping a little course at home, trying to keep a bit of rhythm, trying to keep some impulsion, just trying to keep her happy and just ticking over and plodding around nicely without any shenanigans or anything else. And she did a good job. I think I got a little bit close to the next one. Instead of just keeping going around the corner, because I was finding it hard to get my eye in with her little pony strides, I should have just let her keep going. But it wasn't bad. We were a teeny bit close, not too bad. And because I'd slowed her right down, she had a little lack of impulsion for the next one. I had to really heave herself over it, but she did a great job. I should have just kept going, and she had to put in a bit of an effort. Poor girl. Anyway, she was just settling down and becoming quite easy and not too fussed, and she was very good there. That was a nice one. Again, all we were just working on was her being a nice pony for somebody one day. And so I just wanted to make her easy. Okay, next up was a dressage training day, hence no need for plats, and the reason why some other people are not in show gear. This was not her best test. I had spurs on. I would, in hindsight, have been better off without them. Her trot here, I've put some nice bits in and some not so nice bits. Her trot here was quite reasonable, actually. It was rhythmical and even and quite soft. Yeah, that was quite nice. This bit was not. Here she was spooking, not wanting to go into the corner. The judge marked it as lost concentration, but we were way out in the middle of the arena. Here I had to be in sitting trot all the way around the end of the arena there, because she didn't want to go near the judge's car and she was spooking inwards. Unfortunately, I couldn't use my leg that strongly because I had the spurs on, and every time the spur touched her, she was like humping her back and swishing and sort of twitching her bum sideways and whatever, and so the spurs actually were less than beneficial in this. So I believe I took them off before the next test. Anyway, this trot was quite reasonable. Oh, we had to do a stretchy trot. That was awful. Here, you can see I'm nagging her, and she doesn't want to go forward. But I can't use the spur because every time I do, she reacts badly to it, which has never happened before, just on that day. And so I'm having to nag with my leg. Oh, spooky corner again. Does not want to go into that corner. It was really hard. I was just like, oh boy, it was such hard work. Okay, what's next? Again, she doesn't really want any inside bend because she's just more concerned about what's going on. Getting a bit anticipating here, I think. Do we canter in a minute? Probably. No, we don't. Okay, what's next then? I was in sitting trot there for a few steps to try and actually keep her together, because about here she wanted to charge off. She was actually quite difficult. I see her tail twitches, her butt lifts in the air. It's like she wants to just get off me. Don't touch me with those things. So it was quite difficult. Anyway, that's okay. Can't always go well. And there is a difference between this test and the next one once the spurs were gone. And it's not that I even used them all the time. It's just that when I did try and use them, she didn't appreciate it. So I think we're about to finish off here actually. That canter wasn't too bad. I don't think her halt was that great. I think our centre line was a bit struggling again. Yeah, she's like very difficult to keep straight there. I think I was probably just relieved to stop. And the halt was not square. It was pretty horrible. Anyway, we'll see what the next test is like. Actually, the next test was the one where she came third. So I'm going to leave the whole test up here. My daughter is videoing. It does level up after this halt. I promise. Okay, I didn't immediately go into rising trot. Oh, there I am. Okay. Now this was, I had to push her into this corner because she didn't really want to go in. Her head came up a little bit there. But it was possible. Shallow loop here, 5 metre loop. This one was quite good, and I think it was marked pretty well. Quite pretty well. It was probably about 7 or something. And immediately she's just a lot more free. You can see her tail is a lot freer. She's not really swishing it. She's just a lot happier. Oh, I suppose it does help that it stopped raining as well. There was a lot of... we had to come across the long diagonal here, change the rein, give and retake over X, which was not something we'd done much of, and Dawn had no clue. So I kind of just threw the reins at her and she stuck her nose out, and then we took the reins back and we got marked very low for that movement. Here I think, oh, she probably wanted to canter. She probably thought yeah, there we go. Let's canter. We canter now? What about now? I think it's a 20 metre circle now. You see a little swish of her tail. She was a little bit across there because we didn't get to canter. I think she might try and canter again here. Yeah, there we go. Head up. Let's go. No, Dawn. I made a little mistake here. I got lost and thought we were changing the rein across the diagonal and suddenly realised, loop. So my loop ended up being a bit of a funny shape, and the judge marked it as being a funny shape. Anyway, I saved it at the last moment. I lost a mark for it being a funny shape rather than 2 marks for going wrong. So, yeah. Canter, yeah, it was okay. It was obedient. She went into canter when I asked her, just that her head came right up. Her left rein canter, even though I had all the problems at the beginning on the right rein, her left rein was, once the right rein canter was sorted, it was actually far better than the left. On the left, she was a lot harder to bend. Now, maybe I'm stronger on one side than the other. I usually think it's the rider's fault and not the horse's anyway. Unfortunately, most of our canter had to be on the left rein in this test. Anyway, we go across the... That was quite reasonable anyway. It was quite even the whole time. When my daughter lifts the camera again, we'll see. We had to trot between X and the corner marker there. And then this was her best trot, actually, usually is. Coming from canter to trot, they produced something really nice, and then we had to walk. Now, Dawn doesn't really have a medium walk, so we always get marked down for her walk. If she tracks up, that is her medium, that's her extended walk. I mean, she found it really hard to over-track in the walk because she's so short and compact. Anyway, we got reasonable marks because she did stretch down a couple of times here in the free walk. There I was like, come on, Dawn, concentrate. I'd worked so hard on the free walk to get her to stretch, and she was getting a lot better at it. It's just that she saw some horses off in the distance there and was like, what's going on over there? On this side, I think she does stretch a little bit better, or more consistently anyway. That was a bit better. Anyway, I got a comment of, some stretching. So that was better than no stretching. Just as I come around the corner here, I remember shifting my weight slightly to the outside because, there we go, a little shift, because we had to canter and I wanted to make sure I got the right lead. And here we go, and she's off. The swish of the tail like a helicopter. I remember fighting her all the way down the long side. Just before we had to circle, there and there, a couple of little half halts, like in desperation, come back to me before we turn and the judge can see what your head's doing. Anyway, once the canter there was settled, it was quite nice. Her head came up a little bit a couple of times, but it was all right. I overshot the transition here. She was supposed to trot at the marker. We were a couple of steps too late. Centre line was quite good though, considering it was like a bit of a mess falling around that corner. Centre line was reasonable, and I think the hole was pretty good. I was quite pleased with it. Yeah, I quite liked it. She's immobile and lovely and very good. And that test had a couple of minor little things, but it was quite consistent and quite even, and she actually came third. So the one that came first that day was another pony, like it was a 14-2 Highland pony, and then a horse, and then Dawn third, and then the rest of the horses behind her. Again, not massive classes, probably 13 to 15 people in each class, but to get third for a little bush pony who's never really done dressage, yeah, I was quite pleased with her actually. She's a good girl. Here we decided to do something a little different. Jump on an angle, round the middle one, and over the end one. It was so hard for Dawn. It was so hard because there was barely any room in between. We had a couple of misses, nearly ran my daughter over once. But yeah, here we go. Whoa, straight for the camera. Poor Dawn. Anyway, she was good to do that. That was nice. She found it really hard, and it was really hard. And I kept the jumps really low to try and make things a little bit easier for her. She managed it fine on the right rein. The left rein she struggled with. But she did her best, and what we were trying to do was just improve her listening and jumping something from anywhere so that she would become an easy child's pony if people got it wrong. So she really did her best. She really did. And in the end, after, I think maybe this was the last time, because it was so difficult for her. She was a good girl. Make a big fuss of the pony. What a good girl. In the end, we just put all the 3 jumps up and went straight through them. And she jumped those brilliantly because she'd had a really difficult time jumping on the angle and going round the other jump. I think she was like, oh wow, this is easy now. Fantastic. And she actually really stretched over those, like really basculed over them, which she never did to start with when we first started jumping. And so her technique, very wobbly, her technique had really improved actually as a result of doing something a little bit difficult beforehand. Yeah, I'm really impressed with, over that first jump there, her technique was wonderful. She looked really good. I know it's only little, but more dressage. Oh, and this is the last time I jumped her. I think she dumps me on the floor here. This was the third time I'd fallen off her over the months that we'd had her. And now she's going to slam on the brakes. Oh, there we go. I think I ached. I'm getting old. I think I ached a lot the next day. Oh, hello, puppy. Anyway, it was the first time in at almost Oxa, and she just said no way. So in the end, I put the pole only up on one side, not on both, and then came around, I think, in trot and canter, and she popped it fine, and then I think I put it up again after that. And she was fine. So I was ended really well, really pleased with her. I think that was one of the last times that I rode her because we actually left New Zealand in the end because of COVID. My family's in the UK, my in-laws were in the UK, and we wanted to come back to be closer to them. So we ended up selling all the horses and ponies. Dawn went off to a lady who sells horses on behalf of their owners. She first ended up going to a little riding school, and she was back. She was back returned within a week because she was up to all her old tricks again. And then after lockdown, someone else tried her, and apparently they had been looking for a suitable pony for ages and ages. And they hadn't found it, and they found Dawn, and they cried. They loved her. She went so well for them. They got on really well, and they cried, I can't believe we found our pony at last. And I haven't heard, well done, Dawn. I haven't heard otherwise, so I'm assuming that all is still going well, which I'm really happy about. Dawn's such a nice pony. She just needs to find her right person. She doesn't love to jump big, but she's willing to give stuff a go, you know. So she's gone from a pony that was difficult all the time to one that's willing to try and give it a go. Done a bit of dressage, great hacking, great with other animals, throwing themselves at her, and even willing to give the jumping a go. So all it ended up really, really well. And we went from this to this. And this. Very, very pleased with her. Glad she's found her forever home.